is because, you know, currently, obviously, the vast majority of NFTs are sat on ETH. The user would need to pay to update, you know, basically the metadata on chain, and it could be, you know, depending on what sort of day ETH's having, a fairly significant kind of amount. So there's a whole blockchain element to consider there. But to be completely honest, it wouldn't be feasible as part of this new release, because effectively what we're looking at here is two completely different games. Is the honest truth of this. The old game is a far cry difference from what we built here, basically, and a lot of the kind of data doesn't translate in terms of logarithmic growth progression, and the kind of decision making around a lot of the back end number architecture for the game design, alongside the kind of new implementations of like talent trees and things like this. So, you know, a lot of that data and how it was probably initially established to work for updating on chain, and the thought process behind it, has been completely kind of abolished or is going to be redundant. So unfortunately, it doesn't perfectly translate, but you know, it is something that we can look to in a few as part of like future builds, if it's wholesale something that's decided that the users would like, because you know, anytime you move something like that on chain, you're talking about additional costs on the user side. So it's just something to a few different factors to consider there.
Awesome. So I'm hearing roadmap item for on-chain NFT growth. And then can we chit chat a little bit about if there's going to be a viewer mode for PvP? We're starting to see a bunch of community organized events. Obviously, on the marketing and community side of things, we're going to have all kinds of PvP events that are lined up once foundational release comes. So are there plans to have that viewer mode implemented for PvP at some juncture?
Again, there's definitely plans. It's something we would quite like to include, along with some kind of messaging type friends list. This won't be foundation release, but it is definitely in the plans.
Brilliant. Awesome. And I'm seeing one question here that I think is really important for us to address. It's from DB Crypto that basically states, based off the questions that we've heard or the answers that we've had so far, I get the feeling that development is still in early alpha. Is the RPG release no longer on track for Q2? And I think this is important because there's a difference between roadmap items and foundational release. But I'll let you gentlemen kind of tackle that question here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairly hefty rebuild. You know, there's a lot of rebalancing has gone on as well. So this foundation release is you know, as the name suggests, gives us strong foundations to build off. So you know, short answer is yes, we will be releasing this as a foundation to build off, and we will be looking to gather a lot of user data and feedback and build upon it.
Yeah, so just to kind of add on to that, I'd go one step further than saying that this has been a fairly large rework. I'd go as far as to say that this is pretty much an entirely new game, reutilizing obviously a lot of the kind of base, you know, the NFTs obviously, and the important factors from the previous game. And what is kind of holistically seen on the front end might feel fairly similar in the sense of, let's say, the battle logic to begin with. However, on the back end, the infrastructure level of the kind of the game code is completely different, as well as the game design. So to be clear, whenever the game was starting to be built, it was built as any normal game would be. It was built in Unity, as a game could be built in Unreal. However, what we realized over the course of like a year and a half of releasing the game, which took us focus massively off new feature release, was that the game could constantly be exploited. And wherever you've got a game which is intending to be play and earn or play to earn, whichever language you want to use there, you just can't have that. You can't allow people to manipulate, let's say, the front end and say, I've got 1 million CGC, and then go on chain and redeem that against ETH or USDT, because literally one person could destroy the entire economy in 10 minutes, right? So
Mhm.
We had to basically go, you know what, right? What's important? Just consistently pumping out new features and look, guys, look how fun is this on the front end, but never actually enabling play to earn, or actually going back to the drawing board and literally rebuilding the game from the ground up from an infrastructure point of view. And we chose the latter of the two options, because ultimately the reason that people buy expensive NFTs, and the reason or one of the large reasons anyway, let's be clear on that, is the opportunity to obviously earn passive yield in some way or another through gameplay, and to immerse themselves in kind of building a like a team or a community or a guild or otherwise, to be able to be involved in passive yield. So we had to basically work from the ground up, and what we found was that actually we building a game, a blockchain game, from an infrastructure point of view, is entirely, or as expected, entirely different from just building any game in Unity. It's like if you think about a game where, like any game you play, there's always going to be hackers, because most of the time the game developers, the publishers, don't give a shit, because it's not going to destroy their economy if someone can, hack it. They'll just, monitor it, and then they'll just ban that per user and just get out, obliterate their off-chain credits that they've hacked or whatever, because it has no impact. Entirely different when you're talking about on-chain and play to earn or play and earn or whatever else. So that's the long version, but of the kind of explanation there. Albeit, we're working hard at upgrading a lot of the kind of the design and the front end that users will see. The kind of UI and the UX. I would say 80 to 90% of the work has gone into rebuilding the kind of back end architecture, so that actually nothing is on the front end anymore. So good luck exploiting it.
Just to
Perfect.
jump in there as well, from a gaming point of view, whenever we went and did this as well, we looked at sort of the balance and the progression, and sort of damage values, leveling up values, so we've also reworked a large amount of the design. So whenever this goes to the users as well, we'll be looking for feedback. We'll be looking for to see how people interact with the game. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is it's not just the coins and the side of things, even though that is a major reason. It's also like a lot of work has been done on the design also. So
Brilliant, gentlemen. So just to kind of recap, what I'm hearing here is foundational release will have an artistic and visual overpass, a substantial, almost completely rework to bring everything to the back end for security and scalability. But we're also looking at some changes to gameplay around foundation. Is that correct?
correct.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So
The TLDR, Ben, is it'll look similar in some parts, but it's going to feel a lot different when it's being played. And the back end is entirely kind of no longer basically everything's gone to the back end now. So we are very confident that the exploits that have been occurring from a number of users, but our white hackers have been fully aware of it for quite a long time, should no longer be an issue. And that means that we can slowly but surely roll out the play and earn elements to the game.
brilliant, awesome. And I think the thing that piques my interest, and this is maybe some insider information that I have, just from what you guys have told me, is arguably the most exciting thing is the rate at which we can provide updates with the game once foundational release is live. So I think that just looking at it from obviously the original question being early alpha, foundational release is not going to be delayed past Q2, meaning into Q3 or anything like that. But the position of which the game is after foundational release allows us a lot more flexibility to offer a substantial increase in updates. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we did whenever we went and sort of, I mean, as Robbie said, not just reworked, really just rewrote large sections of the code, was that we've implemented it now in such a way that I mean, to anyone that knows coding out there, basically inversion of control. So it means, therefore, that if we want to change bits of logic, if we want to change data values, if you want to add anything, it becomes a vastly simpler task. So it should also massively, and I mean massively, speed up the rate at which we can push characters, updates, new features, and it also means as well that as we add, or if we need to change anything, it shouldn't introduce bugs. So, as I said, anyone out there that understands programming understands what inversion of control is, or if you Google it, yeah, it's something we've worked into the code now, which is a huge boon in terms of building on top of what we got.
Awesome. Rob, did you want to add anything there? I saw you unmute your microphone.
No, it's just for whatever reason I have this tickly cough, so I just make sure I mute myself when I cough. But then I realised that I have push to talk on anyway, so I don't know why I do it. It's habit.
How dare you be a human?
Yeah, but no, like I think what Connor's highlighted there is accurate. I would also point to, in terms of the rollout, the expect more measured and thoughtful rollouts than probably what has been previously apparent with RPG and new features, because we've got a tighter, more stringent process for version control, and like Conor alluded to there, and the way that we want to test things. So essentially, by the end of our aim is by the end of this month to essentially release a new version, which is the foundation release, to a number of users to kind of try and break it. And we're going to be releasing some test tokens to those users. When I say test tokens, I mean like a token which would be representative of whatever the new token would be for utility, both in terms of I'd say like buying items in game, gacha, as well as I would say the incentivization model of the game as well. So there's kind of there's going to be a fairly big update that comes out, which essentially points out, or I don't know how to say this, highlights, indicates a number of changes which are going to be coming in terms of the RPG tokenomics and ecosystem, and that will also be reflective in terms of the new on-chain mechanics for the foundation release. But to begin with, we're going to have a test token which allows us to monitor and acquire data when this comes back into the new analytics system, which we'll have inbuilt into this version of the game, which was missing, and that's partly what some of the problems we've had with CGC, as I alluded to earlier in the kind of discussion, to basically establish how the token is moving throughout the game, what people are buying, what people are selling, how they are, when people are taking profits, and how much they're taking versus how much they need to reinvest in order to kind of keep the progression route, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of new things with regards to the tokenomics and the economy behind the RPG as well, which we just need to make sure that there's nothing occurring in terms of movement that's going to just basically break the economy immediately. We're confident. Obviously, we've done a lot of analysis on that, but there's nothing like a bit of live testing, to be clear. So this is why we're doing it in this way, because obviously it'd be even more frustrating if we just kind of open the floodgates and then within 2 days we're like, oh crap, there's a major problem here and we have to close everything down. I think everybody can probably empathize and understand that has happened across a number of playing and gaming ecosystems over the last 6 to 12 months. So we want to be a little bit more thoughtful in how it's rolled out, just to make sure that there's no obvious red flags, basically.
So I hear there is a very exclusive early access opportunity for a select number of our best community members. Is that right, Rob?
Exactly, yeah. That's what we're aiming for by the end of this month, and then a few weeks worth of data gathering there, and then pending everything's kind of like running or moving fairly smoothly, let's say, then we'll roll it out to the initial foundation release to the wider community. But it is going to be fairly feature bare to begin with. It is a case of we're rolling out the features that we want to have a look at, make sure that makes sense with the ecosystem. But as part of the update, there's going to be a fairly clear and concise roadmap for the game as well, which has probably been a little bit missing. It's a high level one, but it does point out all of the features that is alluded to in the update that I wrote at the back end of last year, and give people a little bit more of understanding of when they can expect the different features of the game.
Brilliant, brilliant. So it sounds like if you want to be considered to be an early alpha tester, you should drop some emojis in the chat, in the Guardians chat here, so we have at least some idea of interest. And then we'll go from there. All right, gentlemen, let's move forward here. I see that Zebra asks a question. Oh, well, Ginger is excited, obviously. I see that Zebra asks a question. Will there be more daily activities in the RPG other than just the raid boss? Maybe some other fun mini games or different ways to grind within the game?
Well, again, this is planned for shortly, very shortly after the Foundation release. But yes, we are planning to have some daily missions. And we have a few other ideas about some daily activities, but I don't want to start leaking those just yet. But as I said, sort of a daily mission is planned.
Awesome, awesome, dude. Love to hear it. And will that daily mission, you might not want to share it, but I have to ask, will that daily mission rotate, or is it going to be pretty much like a
Oh
daily
no,
quest?
it'll be a daily quest that'll be slightly different each day.
Oh, brilliant. By the way, I don't know if you guys are in Guardians chat here, but you definitely have a handful of people extremely excited for the opportunity to participate in the early access round of the game. So obviously what y'all have been talking about today is generating some excitement.
Well, I mean, just to expand on what Robbie said there, actually, the plan is for the end of the month it'll be early adopters, big investors will be the ones given access initially, but then after that, after we get a bit of data back and do a little bit more refinement, we'll be looking to extend that test to a wider group. So exactly what shape that will take hasn't been entirely decided yet, but we'll definitely have more using that soon.
Awesome. Love to hear it. And then we'll move forward to a question here from Ornimus Maximus asking, will our current experience Guardian player stats be preserved during the foundational release? Or will we have to start from scratch? And he goes on to say, basically, that he's worked extremely hard for limit breaks, materials, and he would prefer to keep his stats, but he understands if that's not the case.
I'll let you answer that one, Rob.
It's a topic that we've discussed quite rigorously and actually debated on quite rigorously as well.
Yes, quite a lot of debate.
Yeah. It's at this stage it's unlikely that we're going to allow people to carry across their data, which we appreciate is probably not what a lot of people wanted to hear. We would have preferred to have allowed people to carry across their data, to be completely honest. However, what we recognized is that if we were to do that, first of all, because we've completely redesigned the game, we're not entirely sure how it would translate in terms of time spent, logarithmic growth, talent trees, a variety of other gameplay features to be honest with you, that are going to differ. But probably even more importantly, is that the data that we can access from, which I alluded to again in the early, in response to the earlier question, because we are essentially abolishing and have rebuilt our basically an entirely new data system, which is stored, back end and not front end with the third party provider we used. That data doesn't really translate particularly friendly. So it would be, I would say, with the number of users that we've got, probably a 2 to 3 month manual job for a developer. And in terms of, value add for that, especially when we're not entirely sure what impact that would have on the new game design and the new game economy, was seen unfavorably, because it would probably delay updates and new features for the new game fairly significantly if that was the case. So essentially, we are heavily leaning towards not at this stage.
I mean, the other way of looking at it as well is you will get a fresh run at all the new rewards at least. So and progression has been thought out. Like I said, reworked by our designers.
And on top of that as well, is here's the other thing to bear in mind is in a way, and some people might think you're chatting crap here, but this is the honest truth. In a way, the decision for this is actually slightly to protect users as well, because if we allowed people to carry across their previous data, there is theoretically nothing, because of how exploitable the game has been over the previous builds. There's nothing stopping people that have just basically gone into the kind of the game, install a browser hack, and then just basically changed, the level of some of their characters. So, in essence, what that means is that, users could be carrying across data which has not been genuinely earned, because for every one of Ornament Maximus, there is another person who has, unfortunately, probably exploited, and it means that they get probably an unfair starting advantage inside the new ecosystem for the kind of earning opportunities as well. And we want to make sure those that are genuinely playing, are genuinely kind of actively invested into the ecosystem, either through NFT acquiring or through the amount that have played, are the ones that are going to be getting the best opportunities to be making kind of earning yield or being rewarded for their time spent in the game. So there's a number of factors as to why that kind of we're leaning towards that decision. And albeit it might be a little disappointing, we totally recognize that. We just think on balance, it's probably the best decision to make right now.
Brilliant. Thanks for that answer then, Rob and Connor. I do want to reiterate that doesn't necessarily mean that early supporters are left out in any way. We do have, obviously, the beta champion, which we've consolidated a lot of information where people that have spent hard, long hours grinding out level breaks and stuff have all been considered.
And on top of that, Ben, you're totally right. But on top of that, if you're somebody who's spent a lot of time in the game, when we go through the manual process of establishing kind of some sort of reward to tether to CGC, and checking kind of the reality of time spent versus how much has been earned, and like manual checks for this types of things, there's still going to be kind of a reward for that past time spent. So it's not wasted energy as it may feel like from losing the ranks or whatever, because you will get a fairly good kind of leg up inside the new ecosystem through through that kind of reward, and couple that with, actually, if you're a kind of an OG in the community here, you're highly likely to be one of the people that gets sort of early access to the new foundation release, and that data will be carried, failing any major issues that we have. The intention is to allow people to carry that data. So in many ways, you actually, through that gameplay and that time and energy spent, you'll be likely earning yourself access earlier than others that maybe have not, and as a result, you're also getting that kind of early leg in to the new game.
That's extremely exciting. It sounds like it's kind of threefold here. Then, first and foremost, the time spent in the game up until this point gives you a early leg to actually be engaged and involved within some of the new stuff we have coming out, which will then present more opportunities. If you have been working hard with Limit Break's resource collection, you will likely be subject to the Beta Champion NFT, and then obviously subject to the CGC to basically earn model that we have created in the future as well. Is that a pretty fair summarization of that there then, Rob?
Yeah, exactly, because we recognise this would be an undesirable outcome. Let's be clear on that to many people that have spent a lot of time grinding. So we wanted to make sure there was something on the other side of the kind of the weighing scales of the disappointment, right? And I think the other thing that Conor touted, which I think is an amazing idea, is to implement a CG kind of OG title inside the game as well. So it's almost like a Valor kind of portrait or otherwise, which shows that this is a person who's been with the kind of game and the ecosystem since the earlier stages of the game itself as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. So just to let people know, what we have done is I've opened up the ability for anyone listening to be able to raise their hand and request to come on a stage and have an open dialogue with us at this point. So if you have any questions that haven't been answered, you want to be able to step on stage and request, there's the ability to raise your hand, and then we'll bring some people up throughout this event as well, if that's a route you want to go. Otherwise, we'll just keep going down the list of questions here because there continues to be a large handful of great questions. I think there is one that we should probably address, and this is going back to Crypto Monk here, just because there are a few people also asking this question, is will we lose all of the collected lieutenants as well throughout the Foundation release?
Likely, yes. It's the similar sort of principle as the other data, unfortunately. But that is something we need to probably assess a little bit independently, because the way that the lieutenants is done is slightly different to the rest of the game. So that's something still to discuss. But again, it is in line with probably more the protection thing, because we're not entirely sure to what extent that has been exploited either, because we are aware of a couple of bugs where people can basically get infinite daily lieutenants. So it's a case of actually there might be a manual process where we look at those who, because there is certain data sets that we can get, for example, number of times logged in, which would indicate, yes, this user would likely have X amount of 2-star or a 3-star randomizer character. But then we are aware of a number of people that have basically been able to infinitely spawn those characters. So it does, again, sadly fall under that likelihood of, because of the exploits that have been occurring with it, we probably won't be able to carry that data. Although there are a select number of people in the ecosystem we know have legitimately earned it, where we might honor that on an individual by individual basis, if that makes sense. We just need to see how that looks a little bit.
Okay, thank you for that response. And I know CryptoMonk is one of the individuals in our community that has been claiming on a daily basis and is near ready to create fuse the 9 3-star lieutenants.
Yes.
Which has been communicated as to be vision-wise an on-chain NFT. So can you provide an update for him in this circumstance?
Yeah, so for CryptoMonk in particular, I know is one of those kind of unique cases where is ascertained that through legitimate means. So the intention would be that we'd probably, if possible, get that NFT on chain for him. So once that is on chain, that's going to be carried across by default. It's actually the off-chain kind of randomizers that we're going to have issue with. So it's a case of if a user's got a 3-star lieutenant ready to be kind of upgraded on chain, then those are the scenarios where we're going to try and provide some sort of like bespoke process for getting those NFTs on chain, and then they would be usable in the new game. But for all of the kind of hundreds of thousands of 1-stars out there, they're by default probably going to be obliterated.
Okay, that's a great response then. So what I'm hearing is that people that have worked their way up to that 2-star, that significant amount of 2-star or 3-star lieutenants will have kind of some opportunity to then have that transferred over to the foundational release through manual means.
Exactly. That's the intention. It's probably not something that we can provide for the users to do themselves, unfortunately, because again, exploits. But we, we will probably be able to get that minted on chain for them, and issued to them in their wallet. So I just need to make sure that we have like a solid process for assessing that. But yeah, we know there's a handful, maybe 5, probably less than 10 people who have that 3-star kind of through legitimate means.
Some dude, love to hear it. Okay, let's see if anyone has their hands raised here. Not seeing anyone wanting to hop on stage. I don't know. I guess people don't want to talk to us, gentlemen. So
Yeah, I won't want to speak to Conor either.
that giggle. Connor's like, I kind of know. I know what
It's
he
like,
means.
yeah, pretty much.
Brilliant. All right, the next question here is from Igo that asks, will daily lieutenants have a skill tree as well? And will there be, I guess, kind of a subset of that is, will there be any artistic variation of lieutenants in the foundational release?
That's a good question, Conor, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. In terms of skill trees for the lieutenants, there's no plans for them at the moment. I would think potentially what we might look to do is the on-chain lieutenant. Yes, that's something we would look to implement, but obviously we'll need to implement the skill trees for the main characters first.
Brilliant.
In terms of other skins, we actually have some work on that done. And yes, we'll be implementing some other skins, but I don't want to talk about that too much yet. It's still a work in progress, and our artists are currently, like I said, there's a mock-up of a couple of extra skins, but we're furiously working on other assets for the foundation release. So again, I would expect this more in some of the later updates.
Brilliant. Awesome. Some stuff to look forward to. We have Ginger that I'm going to invite to speak here. So, Ginger, I just invited you to speak, and you're up here. So, go ahead with your question, Ginger.
Y'all, how y'all doing?
Hi, Ginger.
Hey, nice to hear your voice.
Ginger, you're muted.
I'm having an issue. I apologize with my audio. Give me 1 second. It looks like I'm having an issue like Robbie had.
I have all the issues, Ginger.
I was going to make a comment, but for job security's sake, I'll just sit here.
We all love each other, really.
It's tough love. It really is.
One big dysfunctional family.
It's perfectly imperfect. Yeah. Awesome. Well, while we wait for Ginger to fix some audio stuff, I'll go ahead and just move to one other question here that we have. And again, if anyone in here wants to raise their hand, feel free to do so. And after Ginger's done asking her questions, we'll move forward.
All right, so I posted them in AMA, but I'll ask one very important one that I have. So if CGG is being used in game, is there going to be some sort of burning mechanism for that? If so, what is that?
It's a good question, Ginger. So, you probably asked the question that I wanted to skirt most in this AMA, if I'm honest. But look, I'm gonna speak candidly here and be as open as I can be at this moment in time. There's going to be changes to the tokenomics. The one thing in that update that I wrote at the back end of last year around going CGG full stack is not entirely true as of what the intention is for this new game release. The intention is, and the reason I don't want to speak about this too aggressively is because this ties into other areas of the ecosystem as well, is to essentially untether the governance aspect of the CGG token from large areas of utility across the different products, and that includes the game for the Chain Guardians game. That includes some intentions for Cryptoverse, as well as any kind of future development plans we have for Chain Bunnies as well. So as a long and in-depth answer, the intention would be to roll out a secondary token for the RPG. However, the current line of thought for that is that the token itself would be minted. There wouldn't be like a typical kind of VC raise as you would typically expect. You'd see a lot of other projects, GameFi projects, they'll do two token raises, one for utility, one for governance, and so on. Our thoughts are more in line with releasing the token, providing some sort of metric for CGC in terms of how it would translate to the new token, to provide some liquidity for that new token on a DEX or our own solution. As you know, we've got the staking platform, which is essentially on the back end acts like Pancake Swap, so we could even potentially just do it there as well, and to then manually kind of reward those users for the CGC in terms of the tether for the new token, which would act as both utility as well as the incentive token, but detached from the governance aspect from the CGG. So in terms of CGG, and going back to the question around the burning functionality, this is a really difficult question to answer, because anytime you implement burning functionalities into tokens, it's seen as fairly unfavorable along the kind of security route, because essentially users are on the whole look at deflationary tokens as an investment, as opposed to a token for utilizing for, let's say, utility, let's say governance, or even purchasing or other aspects within a game and ecosystem or a game environment. So burning is not simple. However, as the governance is rolled out, and as the kind of protocol around the RPG and the ecosystem becomes more decentralized, burning functionalities are not completely off the table. If we deem that the project is decentralized enough at that stage, specifically the RPG in this instance, but then of course you've got other kind of other projects to kind of bear in mind and consider that could also impact. So there's a little bit more thought that needs to be done before I can give an honest answer around any sort of burning functionalities or deflationary mechanisms. However, hopefully I've given you enough of an insight there to understand the current logic and thought process behind the tokenomics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate all that info. Sure the community did too. One more question. When more Sonya giveaway?
Oh no.
This is a
Hey, I'm
better
just
question,
joking.
I think.
I actually, Emma has been about doing business travel. She doesn't even know how many Sonyas we accidentally give away. So I'm still ducking this question for now, Ginger.
Hey, it's all good. It was a joke, but thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I hope y'all have a great day and good luck.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ginger.
Ginger.
Thanks, Ginger, and good question.
Awesome. I'm gonna move you back to the. Oh, no, you're fancy. You did it yourself. Brilliant. We had Josh that raised his hand, so I'm gonna invite Josh to come up and speak. I hear enough of Josh on a daily basis, so I'll let you guys interact with him here. What do you got for us, Josh?
Hey, so I'm thinking about all the changes that are coming into the RPG, and we talked about a lot of different stuff that's going on with how we've had to rebuild a couple of different aspects. And I'm wondering if there's going to be changes to the raid boss. Is there going to be different bosses we can fight, or is there anything that you can elaborate on from the raid boss aspect? I know that's a reason a lot of people log in and play daily, and that's a fun thing for people to chase. Can you pull the curtain back on that?
Well, actually, about that, the raid boss will probably come shortly after the Foundation release, because we want to actually give that a bit more of a rework. And when I say that, what I mean is we know that a lot of people like the raid boss. You know, it's something where you're playing with other users, as it were, to not directly, but it is some sort of a combined effort. So what we would like to do is have a variety of raid bosses, essentially. So that's something we want to put a bit of time and effort into. So potentially maybe 2, 3 different types of raid boss that actually require a little bit more thought to fight, rather than just turn up, clobber, team dies, rinse and repeat. So yeah, but obviously that'll take the reason that'll probably come in an update. I'm going to say shortly after. It's something we want to add back in very quickly, but we want our artists to spend a bit of time, coming up with some pretty cool stuff for the raid boss.
I like it. I like it. So I know there's a lot of stuff that's been like it's what we're currently working on, or there's certain things that we can't say out loud yet just because that's the nature of what we do. But with innovation and development, right? But what are you guys the most excited about with the foundational release that is being able to come to the table? What are you guys the most excited about? I'd be curious to hear from Conor and Robbie on this one.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. Personally, the music's kick ass. I absolutely adore the music, and I know that's maybe not but that's my honest answer. Our sign designer did some absolutely beautiful tracks. They're fantastic. They they remind me sort of Final Fantasy VII, but sort of jazzed up a bit with a bit of they're just epic. Every time I launch the build, I'm so into the music. So personally, it's the music for me.
I know what you mean, because I feel the same way. Like every time I load up Halo, like the classic Halo soundtrack, it doesn't matter if I hear that soundtrack, I get goosebumps in my whole body. So I get what you mean with the music and the gaming experience, like going hand in hand. That's awesome.
Yeah. Like I said, it's maybe not the most exciting answer, but for me, the music's just wicked. So yeah, look forward to that.
All right, Rob, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things, obviously, Josh, I think, but probably the main thing for me is the ability for users to kind of deposit and withdraw like tokens, into their accounts in the game. So like, it's a back end infrastructure thing, but it brings us one step closer to kind of like the really exciting aspects of the game, certainly from an from an ecosystem or an economical point of view, and just seeing that that infrastructure is there and kind of working, that users can deposit and withdraw, and the flexibility of that tool as well, in so much as that actually users aren't confined to which chain. They can use BSC and Matic as well. So there's a lot of flexibility with the deposit and withdrawal system that's been built for for the game. So I'm kind of excited to see how people react to that, and their feedback on that. That's probably the major immediate thing with the foundation release. But there's a number of other things like that we've had somebody like Fran Mifrial, hopefully won't mind me pointing her out. She's actually on stage now.
I just brought her up, yeah.
Has been working really hard on the lore, and she's like super talented. And for large parts of that, I haven't had massive kind of oversight, so I'm excited to see how that looks once it's implemented as well, over the kind of updates and stuff. So
actually, yeah, that's another thing I'm really looking forward to us, starting to implement is the story. I mean, because what's an RPG without telling a tale? And
I totally agree.
And well, of course you do. But no, that is an area, again, I'm actually genuinely quite excited about. I can't wait to see sort of the story beats introduced. Now, I'll be quite perfectly honest. There's a huge amount of artwork and asset work will need to go into that, so we will be bleeding that out over the series of the updates. But that is something I'm genuinely actually pretty psyched for as well. Yeah.
Awesome, exciting times. Josh, I had to move you to the audience because we are a little short on time, and I know you would chit chat with us forever. But we came in full circle here, and the reason why is because Fran has been doing some amazing stuff across lore, and I wanted to give Fran an opportunity to talk about the fun and exciting things and what's happening within the lore depths of the Chain Guardians ecosystem. So, Fran, would you mind sharing with us what you're excited about?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Fran. I kind of work in the law section. One of the first things I did was the game narrative, which will be implemented at some stage. But I'm writing stories about the different guardians and our captains and lieutenants, trying to bring them to life. So recently, I think this last week, we've had the Chain Guardians lore page, which you can see at the top of the web page, and I've been posting it in Discord. Is now active, and I'm starting to populate those with virtual books, so you can actually turn the pages. And I've nearly finished a story. Well, I have finished a story about Cuckoo. So that's been I have these Shiko Dai mysteries, and we've done one with Jenny because we're staking with Jenny. And then I've done one with Cuckoo, and my next story is going to be a Sonia. So I know there's a lot of Sonia fans out there, and I feel like I have to do justice to this wonderful character and bring her to life for you all.
Awesome. Thanks so much there, Fran. And out of all the lore that you've done so far, do you have a favorite out of any of the characters?
You know, I really like Shiko Dai, hence my avatar. She's my favorite. And then Seth, because he's Ethereum, and I was one of the first people. I mean, Ethereum was one of the first blockchains that I bought into. So it's quite significant with me about Seth and his character, and it's linked to the Matrix. So I don't know if anyone is a Matrix fan, but Seth is kind of in a virtual world that he's not quite aware of, and how he discovers that. So the stories are released weekly. There's chapters that are released weekly on the law site, so go in and read them.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks so much for coming up. And actually, something that a lot of people don't know is most people that are on our team were fans of the Chain Guardians ecosystem before they became team members of the Chain
Yes.
Guardians team. So, Fran, after listening to nearly the entirety of this stage, do you have any questions for Connor or Rob regarding the RPG?
Any questions? Or you put me on the spot.
No.
When is Shiko Dai going to be in the story? I mean, in the game.
Ooh. That's a good question, guys.
That's a
And
common
Jenny.
question.
We still have Captain Mark,
Yes, we have
Himavan,
Captain Mark. We do. Yeah, Himvan.
Captain Mark, Jenny, B, and Shiko Dai that are waiting to make an appearance in the RPG.
Shiko Dai is just dying to make an appearance.
It's a Conor question.
Sorry, I was typing in the AMA. Can I get that again? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh
of
my
course, man.
gosh.
Apologies.
No worries.
Wait,
She's
I was
is,
taking screenshots.
when is Shiko Dai, Jenny B, Himvan, and just a couple of those other characters going to be in the RPG? Are we waiting for the foundation, or they're going to come in before?
We're going to bleed them out after the foundation. That's the very
Okay.
short answer.
Yeah.
Lead them out.
Well, we can't dump them all at once. Where's the
Hey.
fun in that?
You're gonna cut them and bleed them out, huh, Connor?
Oh, right, yeah.
I just want to jump in as well, because I've noticed that there's a couple of people that have asked questions about what I said about the CGG stuff as well. And I, you know, this was why sometimes I'm a little bit reluctant to maybe speak a little bit too much in depth about things, because I haven't kind of, you know, spoke in huge detail about the entirety of the story here, right? So, you know, there's still some things being figured out. But for example, CGG will still be needed for certain aspects of, like, you know, infrastructure changes around guilds and stuff, which are going to be implemented down the line. So CGG still has a use case in the RPG, but for the most part, it's going to be detached from huge amounts of the utility. There's a number of reasons for that. That's not just simply linked to the actual game itself, but also comes down to the ecosystem of the whole. You have to remember that CGG doesn't just impact the game, the RPG anymore. It also impacts 2 other different protocols, including Chain Boost and Cryptoverse as well. And on top of that as well, another kind of factor to remember is that there will be rewards for CGG that come out through the game, but they'll be through things like, you know, community hosted or well, found RPG or get company hosted events where CGG can still be earned. So it's still going to be used as a reward, but it's just not going to be the kind of the stock token that is earned for day-to-day kind of activities. So I've only given I would essentially be speaking and answering questions on this for hours on end, and I would prefer to kind of allow people to read the exact intentions in a kind of concise article, as opposed to just like, you know, dropping snippets of the whole considerations here. So you know, I just wanted, because the question came up, to kind of give a little bit of insight into the thought process, but the entirety of the of how it will work and balance and the decisions has not been sort of totally revealed. So just kind of, you know, bear with us on that, guys. That information will be coming, but it's just, you know, a little bit of a way off yet.
Awesome. Thanks for that there, Rob. Sounds like quite a few updates are in the works here, as everyone across our ecosystem knows. And as we kind of reiterate here, the most exciting thing about foundational release is it allows us to get to the implementation of these updates much more frequently than we have in the past. So that's an exciting takeaway from this AMA. Reminiscent does ask a question here, and this will kind of be the last question as this has gone on for a hefty period of time. Unless Connor and Rob, do you feel like staying up here? Because I know y'all are very busy, but I don't want to take too much of your time if we're getting towards the end of the wick here.
I have a hard stop in about 15 minutes, basically.
Brilliant. Okay, so that'll give us a couple more questions here. And if anyone wants to raise your hand, please feel free to do so. But Reminiscent asks a question that I think is kind of in the back of a few people's minds. Since levels and stats likely won't be transferred over to the new foundation, can you provide some insight as to what we might want to spend our in-game fiat on so it's not futile? Meaning, is there going to be items that get transferred over, or is fiat relatively kind of lost cause?
Connor, you want to take that one?
I was going to let you take that.
No, you.
Yeah, no. Okay, so it depends. I wouldn't say that there has been any sort of like, you know, thorough kind of decision made on which items may be able to be carried across, because, you know, we're consistently evaluating the kind of impact of, you know, where exploits could have or have occurred. So it's not as simple as, you know, just saying spend your fiat on this, because the honest truth is, you know, there are certain things that it could have impacted that were not have been completely illuminated as yet. So it's changing as we consistently kind of evaluate. So I can't tell you honestly, as from an insight perspective, yes, spend your fiat on this, because, you know, this will be something that you can carry across. But on the back of that question, my brain is immediately kind of assessing that there might be an opportunity whereby there is some sort of item that we can enable people to purchase that makes them feel as though they aren't completely just lost out. That is something that we're able to carry across. It might be something fairly aesthetic, because the game design is very delicately kind of balanced, but all the same, it might you know, it's something that you can kind of look forward to seeing the benefit of in the new game, even if it's not something that's like of tangible value and maybe is more aesthetic, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks for that. All right, Ryan, I've pulled you up. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and go with your question.
Yeah, you pulled me up here. What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
Finally.
Hi, Ryan.
So happy to be up here. It's actually it's interesting for me being on the Chain Boost side, because a lot of the updates that I hear in an AMA like this, it's completely fresh information for me, because obviously being on the Chain Boost side, I hear mostly about Chain Boost all day. But one of the questions that I had is I actually wanted to piggyback on something that Fran mentioned. She was asking about like timelines for character integrations for the ones that are not currently in the game, like Himavan, Chico. I did want to ask when the foundational release has been fully released and all these characters that haven't been integrated yet have been integrated. What would be the timeline for integrating new characters past those? So the characters that are introduced through other collaborations or internal staking, after those characters are introduced, roughly how long would it take for them to be implemented into the RPG?
So the question on new characters actually spans across practically every area of the ecosystem, because it's not just a case of it impacting one particular, when a new character is created, there's a process which occurs. It's not just there's a new character. First of all, you have to consider the kind of business development side of things when we're working with new chains or new projects. Secondly, obviously, we have to align with the marketing team, which you obviously are part of, on the Chain Boost side, but obviously with Ben and stuff. And then you've got the game side as well, so you need the artwork completing, and now when a new character's created, that comes from Noi, and then we have the
really
Chibi.
quickly as well. There's and then there's also the back and forth with the partner.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
There's a lot of different steps that go into the kind of formulation of a new character, which does impact to some extent or another the entirety of the ecosystem, because then you even have to think about the blockchain side of things. It needs to be minted as an NFT, the token IDs. You need the different various phases of artwork, such as the artwork for the actual card design, the chibi itself, any additional artwork, the animations, the programming. There's a huge amount of work that goes into the creation of a new character. So to give kind of accurate and fair timelines, it all depends, because if we've got a really engaged partner who says to us, is consistently giving us feedback on the design, that side might be a little bit shorter. For example, they might say they want fewer mints, and if there's fewer mints, then maybe a little bit less work on the blockchain side, for example, in terms of token ID and how that's worked out. If it's a new chain that we've never been on, you might need to have more smart contract work. Say, for example, if it's an Elrond character, do they want it on the Elrond chain? Or is it just an EVM compatible chain? So there's a huge amount of variables that go into answering that question. So to give a timeline is unfair. But what I would say is that because of the new quality of the code infrastructure, and also the addition of a new essentially artist that's dedicated to purely the creation of chibis. She's called Ashley. I'm sure you've come across her. The turnaround for the artwork, the turnaround for implementing the kind of actual the stats and the actual programming side in the RPG will definitely be shorter. So on the whole, we hope that the timelines will be reduced.
Yeah, I mean, just to add that from the sort of project management side of it, we are looking to sort of industrialize that pipeline more as we proceed. So it will become more consistent. But as Robbie said, there are certain variables which are outside of our control, which, in particular, like I said, sometimes some partners, are very receptive and give a lot of feedback and are very clear in what they want in their character. Some partners not so much. They maybe just lack the experience. So there are certain variables that do move these goalposts around sometimes a little bit. But from a production point of view, we are sort of formalizing that process. So it should be quicker and more consistent moving forward.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, guys. And I do have one more question. It's actually a question from Turtle J, but I believe that she's having some mic issues. But she wants to know, will there be any, or can we have more updates on PvP? Will there be any plans for esports tournaments or spectating with the foundational release?
Not so much with the foundation release. I mean, somebody asked about spectating earlier on. It is definitely something we have in the works. but it is with the foundation release, we're looking to cement damage progression and a lot of the gameplay. So the updates for PvP, there's a lot of things coming, like with skill trees, that will add a lot, much more depth to the gameplay in general. So we will be looking to include friendly PvP quite early, and as Robbie mentioned earlier, we'll be looking to set up sort of tournaments and stuff, utilizing that. But in terms of the full scale PvP, there's still a lot of things need to be finalized, I suppose is the word for it, before we'd because we want to be confident that whenever players start playing players, and you're up against a human being, there's a lot more uncertainty and moving parts. So we need to make sure that damage values, skill values, all those kind of things are hammered out in a really solid concrete place before we fully flesh that out.
Just to add to that as well is one thing to really consider with regards to PvP is that actually, like, as part of the roadmap and the new game design, is obviously we talked a lot about the introduction of guilds, and a lot of the PvP will be based around the kind of end game content of guilds, and the design for that is beautiful, to be honest with you, and we're really excited about that. But in terms of actually implementing that, it's going to be a little way off. We'll provide, obviously that'll come out as part of the roadmap, and people can gauge that. But as Conor sort of suggested, there's a lot of tools that need to be built and implemented ahead of actually having a really kind of functional PvP guild scenario, such as, and Conor alluded to this before, like messaging systems, guild management tools, how guilds will utilize their ecosystem funds and for what purposes. You also have a lot of kind of online offline considerations about when a player's online versus offline. How will those combat scenarios occur, if at all? How long would you give users there's huge amounts of things that, to be honest with you, we have a good base for, and we're confident with, because we spent a lot of time thinking about it and fleshing it out.
Yes.
But the truth is, until we get some kind of like slow rollout of the different tools and feedback and play testing and stuff, we can't be looking to kind of break the kind of ecosystem that break the esports back on any sort of like real short-term basis.
Great answers there, gentlemen. I'll just add from a community level, quick shout out to Ginger and Odonto Gaming for doing a ChainGuardians community sponsored tournament where you gave away your own NFTs. We love seeing stuff like that. Shortly after Foundation, we will do some community level events, but before some of those more decentralized and elements within the game come to fruition. So don't worry, they're in the works. Just from the marketing angle, we'll do some stuff and fun community events at that level. Piggyback off that, Rob, Conor, we're kind of hitting the end here. Is there anything that you guys want to talk about specifically, or are you more comfortable with the rollout?
Yeah,
go on, Rob. No, you go first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just wanted to take the time just to thank everyone, really, because first of all, for turning out here and listening to us ramble on, but also secondly for the amazing questions, and thirdly for being really kind of loyal community members, because we know that there's been black periods where there's been no communication about certain things, and it's required a lot of faith in the team that we're doing the right things. So thank you so much for the patience there. We're confident that, albeit the new Foundation release might not blow people away in terms of features, or even maybe on the artwork, albeit there's definitely been some improvements there that you'll see, that from the back end side of things, the infrastructure, that we've made huge progress. So we're hoping that people can at least feel that and understand and start to see the benefits of that when they get opportunity to have a look at that. Meanwhile, just to kind of allude to kind of hoping that people just maintain the patience with us as we do roll out all of the new features, and as we continue to kind of flesh out the token side of things as well, because we've got some really good plans there, and at every step of the way it's always been around what's the best decision to protect users, what's the best decision to make this sustainable, what's the best decision to kind of ensure that users are protected. So we're trying our best to make sure that every decision made is from the community perspective, and that one of our big goals is to implement more decentralized decision making in the latter part of these years as well, in line with the actual governance token. There's some exciting kind of work being done on that side around the actual protocol itself, and a lot of the ways that we're going to be rewarding you guys that have been loyal community members for your voice and for your vote through the CGG token, which is where a lot of the kind of the rewards are going to come from for CGG as well going forwards. So just a major thank you for everyone for their trust and patience in us.
Yeah, just to chime in, I would actually echo exactly what Rob has said. Just thank you for everybody's patience. The decisions we made, to do such a major rework on the back end are, very much user focused, because as Robbie's alluded to a couple of times, this is something that it was actually a difficult decision, but we looked at it and we thought, what is best for the game and best for the community. So sorry it's taken so long, but it's a major bit of work, and we're definitely seeing light at the end of the tunnel now. And just to reassure people as well, going forward, we have, almost, I would say, ultimate confidence in this rework. It is a major bit of work, and it is to call this foundation release, it'll be a very solid thing that we can build on, and it will massively speed up what we're able to do going forward.
And I just want to say one other thing as well. Something that probably has not been communicated to the community, and with good reason, is that basically the lead dev, who were with us for like a large portion of time as part of this rebuild, had basically a serious occurrence in their personal lives, which meant that they couldn't continue to work with us or work at all, in fact. And of course, it's not the sort of thing that we can openly communicate, because this is a personal matter for that person. But it did also mean that whilst we were aiming for this to be even sooner for the foundation release, that we actually had to transition a huge amount of the development work with a large period of education for what had been done to a new dev to be leading up on this, which took, as you can imagine, a large amount of time. So whilst we haven't openly communicated that to the community, as I say, for good reason, that also has happened during this period of silence in terms of communication and updates. So for those of you that are obviously listening to this and have listened for over an hour now, you obviously are a massively part of our loyal community. I wanted to kind of share that with you as well, so that you know that there has been challenges that we've met head on, but have definitely caused delays as well. And I just wanted to make you aware that that was that was a part of the reason why there'd been a little bit of a period of silence, because we were all kind of working really hard to make sure that the new lead had what they needed to pick up from the previous as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, Rob, because we don't necessarily share everything that occurs like that, but really across a handful of people on our team, we've had just an extremely unfortunate array of different family oddities, really bad COVID illnesses, medical situations that have arisen, and it's been oddly freaky how impacted our team has been this year. But I'm always so impressed by people that are willing to work within the team, even in the face of some of these struggles. And so we don't necessarily bring it up because we don't want it to be perceived as excuses, but the amount of people that are working through certain circumstances to bring the product to fruition is inspiring. It just says a lot about our team and our dedication. So, yeah, thanks, man. I think that if you're still listening here and you're here today, it tells you that obviously there's some turbulence in the greater crypto space, but we want to do it right. We want to be here for 5-10 years, right? And there's a lot of things that go into that consideration. So while foundation and some of the things we talked about might not be ideal today, we want to be ideal long term. And that part of the reason why we're taking the approach we are today is to make sure that we can continue to grow as a project, as a community, and as an ecosystem for long-term growth and development. So that's my final 2 cents, gentlemen. You wanna sign us off here?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We continue to work hard. Progress is good, very good. We're excited to show you things, over the coming months. And we hope that you enjoy things. Please, as always, keep the faith with us. As always, keep giving us really honest feedback. Be critical of things that come out that you don't like and that you do like, and we will continuously look towards empowering you through decision making. So lots more to come, and thank you again.
Thanks everybody for sitting and listening to us waffle on for so long, and yeah, I'm just excited to finally bring you guys lots of exciting updates very soon.
Well, you guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much. And the last thing I have is please let us know if you enjoyed this type of event in Guardians Chat. And especially as we start to roll things out, we might be able to create some type of weekly or bi-weekly Discord stage event, but only if we get positive feedback that this was appreciated and that you guys like having the opportunity to chit chat with us. On that note, thank you very much, everyone. And as always, have a wonderful day, and we'll chat soon.
Cheers, guys.
Safe.
Take care. Bye bye.